Welcome to the LSI Behind the Wind podcast. My name is Sean Slatter, and for 30 years, I've dedicated my life to the science of business development. I've seen the impact of our work, which has evolved into economic development and now social impact. In this episode, I have asked our Chief Human Resources Officer, Jessica Dixon, to join me. I adore Jessica, and I'm so excited that she is part of our team. I worked for several years to bring her into the organization, and she's now leading all of our talent strategy. And in this episode, we talk a lot about recruiting, retention, resourcing, and I think you'll find this to be a great conversation with Jessica. So I hope you enjoy it. Jess, I'm excited to have you on this episode, and I've been looking forward to this for some time. As you know, I asked you to do this last year, and so it's been a while trying to get on your busy calendar. So as we start, would you just talk about yourself and your background and how you ended up here?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I think I've told you I'm a big fan of the podcast. I always listen. So I hope I can, add some value here in this episode. But I started at LSI almost a year ago. I've almost hit my year mark in, I would say, April 2021. So it's been a great year, learned a lot. Prior to coming to LSI, I could say, I guess my HR career started way back when I was a teenager, doing payroll and posting ads for my dad's company. He has a construction company. So I helped out with that and kind of gained some interest into the business world. Then I had a few different jobs in college, did a lot of different things. And I went to college for a while. It took me a while to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. I think I still am figuring that out sometimes, but
Me too.
I started out in psychology at Weber State, so I'm a Wildcat, and decided that I wanted to test out social work. I made it about a semester in that and decided, no way. As much as I love the work, I didn't think that the return on investment for, all the time was going to be worth it. So I decided, okay, here's it. Let's go into business. And human resource management was the natural choice because I thought about psychology and social work because of my love for working with people. And that really has turned into a great career. So I went to college for 7 years. My brothers tease me all the time about not being a doctor, just having a bachelor's. But I graduated with a degree and a half. So I take that happily. And then I worked here, I guess my last job before coming to LSI, I worked for several years with a local company that did outsource sales and marketing for many different tech clients. So business model wise, similar in the sense that we work with clients, we help solve problems primarily with that organization around sales and marketing. But here I've loved to see sort of the wide array of ways we partner with clients. It's been really fantastic. The workforce is definitely different, going from entry level, kind of a call center environment to this, really experienced professional government, employees or retired government employees. So it's been a great experience. I like to think that I've done a little bit of everything, but you think you've seen it all and something changes, especially in HR. People, you never know what to expect. So I love that part of my job.
Thank you for that background. I'm going to start this dialogue with us in maybe in sort of a surprising way. As you and I have worked together closely for the last year, I really admire your ability to balance being an amazing mom and a wife and a daughter and an executive. And I love that about you. You are such a great individual in all of those capacities. And would you talk about just being a mom and a wife and a daughter and and an incredible executive and a member of our senior leadership team.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's very kind. I tend to kind of just talk about keep it work, but I love to talk about my kids and my family. They're fantastic. I have two young kids, so they are 4 and 5, and they are a handful. My son loves everything, Pokemon and Minecraft, and my daughter, who's 4, is beginning her dance career that we like to joke about often. But it's so amazing to see them grow in their personalities. And as a working mother, especially with a very important job, a job I take very seriously, it's been a balancing act for sure. I'm lucky to have a really supportive husband who has also a great career, who can help prioritize care for the family when needed. And also, I feel very fortunate to have, a team around me and a leader like Sean who sees me as a whole person and not just, my contributions to LSI. I grew up with a father I mentioned who owned a construction company, still does. He's 65 years old, packing forms out with his guys. He taught me a lot about work ethic. He would go to work every day, even on Christmas. And so that taught me very early on that not to be afraid of hard work and to find a lot of satisfaction in my work. And that's where I kind of developed that. My mom was supportive. My dad was the sun in the world, and she was the ecosystem all around. It kept everything running. So they've had some challenges lately with health and stuff. So I've had to step up in a way I never had before. And all of that, shortly after joining a new organization, I was so terrified. Oh, what are they going to think about? I have all these demands in my personal life, but LSI has been so fantastic and understanding and kind and empathetic. So I appreciate that. Overall, like I said, my mom didn't work very much. So this is a new territory for me and my family. I'm the first one in my family to graduate college. Everyone else is more of in a trade, but I'm really proud to kind of demonstrate that to my children. So it's kind of any working mom will tell you, especially with young children, there's a battle between being at work. You feel guilty when you're at home, and you feel guilty when you're at work. And so there's a lot of satisfaction in being able to show my children, especially my daughter, that she can be successful and realize success. And it all comes from finding the right organizations that value your contributions as a whole person. So that's really what I'll say in terms of balancing. It's as much as a balancing act from the individual as well as it is from the organization recognizing that.
There are so many, especially young moms, that I see that are conflicted of balancing their career or being a mom, and should I pursue this path or this path? What advice would you give? You're such a role model. I think you're this incredible benchmark of how to do this. What advice do you have for moms that have this conflict?
Well, I guess my greatest advice I've ever received, I would pass along to other people. Whenever someone becomes a mom, it's a scary new territory. Or even with multiple kids, you think you've got it figured out and it just changes. But whatever you decide is the right decision. Don't ever question what you think is right for your family. If you decide that working full time is right, it's right. If you decide that staying home or something in the middle is right, it's right for your family. Don't ever question your instinct and what you think is right for your family. A lot of that is said for how people raise their children, but I think that is a huge part of being in the workforce. I find it to be a privilege to work with a lot of people. In working in HR, I get to understand, leaves of absence. I managed that for many people in different organizations. And it's such an exciting time. And I did not recognize the fear and concern until I went through it myself that these, mothers would face and think, what does this mean? I know for me, I struggled with an identity crisis 100%. When I started out, I was the first one there. I was the last one to leave. I was working all the time. My value in an organization, what I was looking for was I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to climb the ladder. And when you have children or get married or have a big event in life, sometimes that can change and you struggle a little bit with your identity. How do I show my value knowing that I have these other demands when I can't always be the last one to leave? If I can't always, if I do have to use up my sick leave because now I have another person I'm using sick leave for. So just know whatever decision you make is right and your identity will change and that's okay.
I love that you are this power executive and working these multi-billion dollar deals within the company, and then your dance mom, and you've got these different roles, and you really are an inspiration to a lot of our executives in our company and our clients, and I admire that you're able to balance being just an incredible. You've got this incredible personal life and career. And for anyone that thinks that that's not possible, talk to Jessica about that, because she's incredible at this. It took us a couple of years to bring you in. We started talking with you a few years ago, and when you and I first talked about this position, I had this. I mean, you remember what I said to you? I said that our work is about our people. All of our work is about our team, and that we've got this trajectory of growth, and we need your help in building a talent infrastructure within the organization to ensure that we have success within each of these engagements, individual engagements, and then corporate wide. And you had said to me, there's not a lot of companies that are focused on HR as being strategic. And I said that our entire business is about our team. And so over the last 12 months, you've been instrumental in the LSI strategy. And I mean, talk for a minute about your thoughts on this premise of you coming into the organization.
Yeah. Well, I would say when it comes to the business being about the people, I definitely think that's important. It's critical to success. That's what your business is, your people. And when I joined, where we were thinking that a global pandemic might be coming to a close, and we're hitting into year 3 of it. So it's definitely shifted how we have to look at business and how we can accomplish our goals through our people. I feel very fortunate coming into an organization where, in terms of talented people, we were not starting from scratch. Everyone is so incredibly talented and smart, knows what they're doing. I never had any challenges finding the right answers and the right people to turn to as I'm learning about the business. There's definitely, been a lot of figuring out how to come out of this pandemic, and our clients are facing the same challenges we're facing. So attracting new talent is key. Turnover is a huge priority for organizations trying to, retain great employees. And I do think the LSI has been fantastic at that too. You've got some people that have been here for several years that have really, supported the business and helped it grow. So that I feel that we're pretty well prepared to have. We've got great people in place that can help push things forward. and then, just setting in programs and infrastructure that will support that growth and scalability, that's kind of key. So when I came in, I had a kind of a list of things I wanted to examine and figure out what I can do to make an impact. That's my goal. I mean, at the end of the day, if, my overarching objective at anywhere I work is to make a positive impact, whatever that is, at whatever level I can. So if I'm looking at, okay, here's some different things I can tackle, a lot of processes, trying to move towards more digital or virtual processes, or digital processes that support virtual employment, virtual hiring, things like that. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And then now kind of more moving into, cultural programs, how do we recognize our employees? How do we thank them for their hard work? How do we upskill them and level them up so that they can feel like this is a great place to continue to grow and learn, and maybe learn different things. So that's what I think I'm excited about for this year and coming years, is really impacting that employee experience and making this the best job they've ever had, the best place they've ever worked. That's my goal.
One of the
And
reasons,
your goal.
Sorry.
No,
No,
I know.
I mean,
I'm so proud of having a team around me that is so focused on that. I think, as you mentioned earlier, it's refreshing to have such a commitment from senior leadership to what this experience should look like, and how we can make it the best place to work. So thank you.
I have loved that you have been so integral into the overall corporate strategy, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. One of the things that I've told you this before that I loved about your story was that you, in a prior role, came into an organization and the HR team was ranked last in of like 50 organizations in the company. And you said, I'm going to turn this around. And you brought the organization from being ranked last to being ranked number one. And how did you make that happen?
Yeah, well, and I have to give credit to my team. I didn't solely do it myself. I think we had some magic in that team, I will say, and great leadership and support. But yeah, that's it. Absolutely the truth. When I joined the team at my last organization, HR never really gets the most, popular award of the company. Everyone, HR rolls their eyes, which is okay. I get it. But they were seen as very transactional. Words were used to describe it like, a curtain, that, how they operated was a very high volume environment with a ticketing system like a queue, so what our leadership came in and said, we're going to change this. And we all as a team decided, let's rebrand. And those are sort of the things that you do to help build some momentum for change. But ideally, what was the key was us taking the time to, one, truly understand the business, get to know what things meant, not just work from an HR lens, but from a business partner lens, and be strategic that way. And number two, really building relationships, truly getting outside of the curtain, so to speak, and getting, in the muck and saying, I need to understand why, here are some relationships. And people think of HR, they think about hiring people, firing people, and just, all the bad stuff, when really that's maybe 10% of, our day or our week or our month. But really getting to know the business and how we can be strategic with our people initiatives, hiring, all of that, policies, but also building relationships, creating, opportunities to kind of share perspectives, and also building trust is I think that's what took us from being last ranked to then We did a survey in the organization where they ranked, all of the support organizations. And it was the last 2 years before I left, we were number one in support organizations, which we were really proud of. My team was so proud of that because we're thinking, here we are, we worked so hard to show our value in the organization. And it comes from being customer centric, and from building those relationships and understanding the business to have really valuable insights that can help achieve, the common goal. So yeah, I would say those were our secrets, but that it worked really well and I'm really proud of that.
And then when I validated that, you told me this story, and then I tried to talk to everybody that would talk to me about how you did this, and they all said it was transformational. It was amazing, and it was really the reason that I wanted you as part of our team. When you joined the team, I told you, I said, I've got a vision for what your role in the company looked like, which was so different from some of your prior roles, right? I mean, this was a very senior position that we were looking to fill, and that you would be a part of the corporate strategy. You would serve on the board of directors at some point. I mean, I had this vision that I wanted to see happen, and you just stepped into this role in this amazing way that has been transformational for our organization. And as you said, it was when you joined the company, we thought we were at the end of the pandemic, and actually it was probably at the peak of the pandemic. And we were still battling work from home and a lot of team challenges because of all of this. And I mean, talk about your thoughts over the last year, as we had already moved the entire team virtual before you had joined, but now that the process had been in play for several months, and there were some challenges, and you just came in and took them on.
Yeah, I think COVID, or maybe I shouldn't say that word, but the pandemic flipped every business on its head in a lot of ways. We all had to adapt, and a lot of companies fared well and a lot of companies didn't. And I think LSI was successful despite having to send everyone home, right? We still accomplished a lot of our goals. And when I joined the organization, like you said, we kind of thought, as we have thought many times over during this process, that we're nearing the end, and suddenly it's just the beginning. And so we did some evaluation, what is first and foremost safe to do? Is it safe to come back into the office? And, a lot of organizations were starting to decide that we were at a point where it was safe to allow people to come back out into the world and back into their offices. So we explored that, but we were, just like many organizations, dealing with the reality that now a lot of people who were maybe even reluctantly thrust into working from home have found some, convenience in that, and they enjoy it. And so the component of actually where we work was never really a question, is now a question we have to answer. But an even larger, I think consequence was, how does that impact our culture, and how do we collaborate, and how do we stay accountable? I mean, that's always a question people don't want to talk about, but the reality is you have to know how people are being productive. There's distractions at home that don't exist in the workplace. There are distractions in the workplace that don't exist at home. So I think what we found is that there are, always going to be individuals who say, hey, this actually works better for me. There were definitely individuals who said, I work better in the office. I want to come in. I want to have a hybrid workplace, which we're seeing as an emerging employer benefit that is sort of taking over when we talk about I don't know, years ago used to be things like paid time off. Now, the big benefit that's relatively low cost is that flexibility or a hybrid option. Everybody wants to be able to decide where they want to work when they want to work, which isn't always feasible for an organization. You have building space. Hybrid's the most expensive in terms of cost because you can't really scale down, and you also have to invest in technology. But in the long run, I mean, I think for job seekers, that's definitely one of the top priorities that people are looking for. So it provide a competitive advantage when you're looking for talent, and also helps work as a retention tool for employees who enjoy that. But it's definitely the hardest to facilitate collaboration, and really the hardest one to overcome culturally. I don't think any organizations have truly figured it out yet. I think we're all trying to navigate this and figure out how do we really get the same level of engagement and collaboration and that feeling of belonging and culture that we got pre-pandemic, in a hybrid environment. It's certainly a challenge, but I've been really amazed at some of the people, that we've worked with, some of their level of dedication, and how they, say, I can still do a great job from anywhere. And people who are willing to, work at all hours, which I don't know if that's a great thing either. Hybrid work makes it hard for people to truly feel like they're on or off too. So, I mean, there's a whole new set of questions to answer, but I love the challenge. I love figuring it out, and maybe we get it right. And if not, we try again, so I think it's been interesting.
And, I think you touched on something critical, that we had high potential, just really fantastic individuals on the team that when we went virtual, they couldn't do it. And they failed, where we had this structure and there was some interface on a daily basis, and for them to move into a virtual environment, it was so different, such a different position for them that they couldn't do it. Conversely, we had individuals that their throughput and productivity went through the roof. So a lot of it is the individual and their work ethic, their dedication. We're going to make this work no matter what. And it was an interesting line in the sand and demarcation for us on what happens in a crisis. How does the team respond? And I think we were surprised in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think whenever we say, okay, we're going to send you home, or, I need you to, come into the office and you've been home, we are testing that trust. It's always a sort of, we trust you to get work done. And I don't think anyone would intentionally say, I'm just not going to be productive at home. I'm sure there are other factors that come into play, but, at the end of the day, we still have an obligation to, meet our goals and deliver for our clients. And so if we're not able to trust that things are, happening from a different area that we're not overseeing, then it makes it really difficult to extend that beyond. So I definitely, I think it depends on the individual in a lot of ways. It depends on how we engage as well. We've talked about, implementing programs and processes that will help to engage people remotely, that maybe keeps them feeling connected to the company. Because I think that's what happens more often than not. A person starts to feel disconnected from the organization. Maybe they feel like they don't see how they contribute and start to kind of disconnect.
One of the primary tasks that I gave to you was we need to incorporate the HR talent management for the corporation into the overall corporate strategy. And you may remember early on when we first started talking about what does this strategy look like? How do we improve our recruiting, our retention, our resourcing within the organization? While we were in the middle or the peak of the pandemic, and it really, I think, shaped our thinking about what does the workday look like? What does productivity and throughput, and how do we assess value for contribution of an employee? Will you talk about that for a minute? Because I loved working with you on this approach.
Yeah. I know, I mean, when we talk about the workday, that is, again, a pandemic kind of, the workday became sort of this byproduct of the pandemic that changed a lot of things. When people aren't commuting anymore and, they're deciding to work at different hours, I think we talked at length about what is meaningful working hours. So we're available during normal business hours, maybe available for project deadlines that may require people to work a little bit later over the weekend, but we offset that with allowing different time off and things. So communicating expectations of availability is really critical. We do that a lot with onboarding. We'll talk about what's availability like, here's the expectations, and then kind of how we expect for the role, or what we expect for the role, and how we see success. Having a lot of dialogue and feedback is really helpful so people can course correct in time, and really make a meaningful change if that's required, and be able to really succeed. So it all comes down to clear and open communication of expectations, level setting up front. I've been working on, different policies that we can roll out that are just more so a level set. There's really not a lot of behavioral change required. It's defining what we do and how we do it, that people understand and know what's expected of them, and they know how they can be successful. So when it comes to working hours, whether you're in the office or at home, what that looks like, and working, expectations, what's your key deliverables and the roles.
And accountability. And
absolutely.
I love that you put these quantifiable metrics into every one of our engagements. And we really have a good handle on now productivity, throughput, and then all of the contract and client deliverables, the objectives for the engagement or your role in the organization, the milestones that need to happen, and then the deliverables. And for a large organization like ours, for you to put that into place in such a short time and automate a lot of this with the operations team has just been awesome to watch. I've loved it. So it really forced our thinking while we had so many of our people at home, and what are we going to do next? What is the plan overall? It caused us to reflect, is this necessary? Is it not? Is it this important? What is important? What is the priorities? And I think I told you, I felt like even though we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, in a lot of ways, we're really re-engineering the organization that feels new and there's a chemistry in our organization that feels like a new startup in some ways, that we've got all of these amazing people trying to make this happen and serve our clients. And it's been really fun. I mean, despite the challenges over the last several years, it's also been fun putting together this structure, the strategy, the metrics with you to make our company the best.
It has been so much fun. I will say I really appreciate your attention or urging for innovation. I think that this inflection point that you're sort of describing is such an exciting time to be with LSI. We have employees or, folks that come to us with great ideas, and I can so much appreciate your willingness to say, go do it, go try it. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed, but it's so exciting. It's so invigorating. It makes thinking innovatively and really adapting possible. And it's really been such a cool experience to be part of these initiatives and to roll things out or to, guide on things that we're seeing things come together, things that we've been able, that started even before I came in, that we've been able to, put little bows on and continue to evolve. I think that this idea of continual adaptation, innovation is really going to be critical to the next 50 years so that we're ready for anything. If the pandemic taught us anything, it's that nothing can stop you. We're ready to go and we'll make it work and we'll adapt if we need to.
I love that. We recently made you an officer of the company, and it was always, I told you when we were first talking, this was my vision. I wanted you to have a seat at the table, be a member of the board, be a part of the senior leadership team. And we recently promoted you to Chief Human Resources Officer, which is not something that a lot of organizations embrace, that HR is part of the strategy of the organization. And when you and I had talked about this promotion, I said, you are the strategy. You are the strategy, and everything else revolves around our team, which you have responsibility for. So talk about what your thoughts are. You've never been in an organization like this. It's a very different organization than where you've worked previously. And what has that been like, having input into things like pricing and having input into and client interface, and you're so good at it. You're so amazing at interfacing with a client, with a challenge, that with an employee issue, or even traditional HR benefits, whatever it is. You just have that ability, like in your personal life, to spin all of these plates at the same time, and you're always so calm and very poised at all times.
Well, thank you. I mean, going back to the initial conversation about the strategy, I felt like, okay, no pressure here. That's a pretty big, shoes to, tall order, but I definitely have embraced that challenge. I so much appreciate how much you have empowered me to step into that, and I feel supported. We don't always agree, and that's important, because if we did, I think that would be an issue. I think there's value in challenging certain things, and with the rest of the senior leadership team, I think that we can, and I'm happy. Well, not first. Maybe it takes a minute. Like anyone, we have to kind of decide if things need to, change. And I've appreciated that, having to go back and refigure things, and that's okay. I have really enjoyed working with you and the rest of the team, and really everyone here who says, you've got this. We know and let's trust your instinct, and let's ask questions along the way and really figure it out to make the right decision. it's a new role for me to be sort of at the table, and that's exactly what I was looking for, and I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been great. It's been a learning experience, I think, definitely, but I've enjoyed it every step of it, and I look forward to many more, opportunities and years for growth. But I think for me, going back to balancing, that's really what HR professionals and many really true professionals have to do, right? You've got to balance the needs of the organization with, many different needs of your clients, of your workforce. At some point, some things may have to, give, and other times, other things may have to give. So it's a balancing act on, prioritization, what's key for the group or what's ultimately the right thing to do. And we have to learn how to, we know, I mean, we've done well, but we have to learn how to continually adapt that as we face new challenges like we have lately. But there's always a way to, we can always find a way as long as we guide ourselves with our values and we know that, we're looking to do the right thing and continue to grow the business, meet our goals.
Parallel to helping the senior leadership team with corporate strategy, I've also given you this somewhat impossible task of defining the LSI culture. And you and I have gone back and forth on a lot of points in this task. And I think we've got a really good vision of what the expectation is and what we want to create, where we are today, what the corporate culture is going to look like in the next 3 months, 6 months, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about if you were describing the LSI culture to a prospective executive, what would you tell her?
Absolutely. I would say we are experts. That's really what we do. That's who we are. I look around, I don't see anyone who does not know inside and out what they need to know. We come through, right? That's why our clients look to us, because they know that they can count on us. So
Results driven.
Yeah.
Results
Thank you.
driven and metric driven, and we will quantify value.
Absolutely. Results driven. We get results. We are innovative. We are experts in our field, and we definitely care about our clients. We care about our people. We care about, our business and what's going on in our communities. And we are aware and hyper focused on, solving these issues and partnering with people to help them solve their issues. So from a cultural perspective, I would say if you want to work at LSI, you will have high expectations of your delivery. You will be given grace, certainly, but you need to show up every day and do your best and continue to grow. And, we care about each other. We're not rude. I mean, everyone's professional. I've found that to be really refreshing as well. Professional, respectful, experts. That's what I would say.
I have loved where you have taken on challenges and really that have been metric driven, metric focused, and it wasn't working. And you just go in and you've been so professional in your interface and resolving these challenges. Sometimes it hasn't worked, and you've been amazing at conveying that to an individual or to a team that this isn't working and maybe it's not resolvable. And you're always so graceful in how you handle that, and it's fun to watch.
Thank you. I mean, we all want to be treated with dignity and respect, and I do see that across the board. I think that if things are, going, if we need to kind of peel back the layers and peek into things, then there's a way to do that that's productive, and so I think that everyone's on board. I think there's a collective desire for everyone to do well and for the business to succeed. So it's not too difficult to get that collective agreement and participation to address issues or come up with a different way of doing things.
I've appreciated that you have a position and that, as you said, you and I have not agreed on decisions oftentimes, and we had a significant disconnect on a major element of the strategy. And I loved that you weren't emotional about it. You said, I need to explain to you where I'm going with this. And this was the end of a, I don't know, 6-hour meeting or something. And you said, this is it. This is why we're going down this path. And it really forged the entire thinking on this element of the strategy. And that is a talent that you have that not a lot of people have. We work with a lot of clients, and this is my position, and I'm going to force it down your throat or be emotional about it, and you're not. You're just, you have this ability to communicate so well. And I think that that's been a major reason over the last year that we have accomplished so much, that we have conveyed expectations and milestones and implemented a lot of change. I mean, you think back about the change that we have implemented corporate wide, it's been significant.
Yeah, there's been a lot of change and a testament to this group of folks that have been all along the ride, for many years, enduring this change on top of everything people are going through at home. I think I've always really appreciated your attention to that, people's, whole lives, and taking that approach of understanding that, there's more than, although sometimes it feels like the world may revolve around work. Sometimes there are other factors that come into play. I've always appreciated your empathy with respect to that. And to be fair, if I'm not going to push an initiative that I don't think is going to work for the company, and I don't think is going to help us achieve our goals. And you could easily always say, no, we're not going to do it. And so I appreciate your trust that, this is going to work. And I would say the same for, the rest of the team. There's a trust there that we all have a common goal. At the end of the day, we all want to see LSI succeed and grow and really prosper our employees' lives and around our community. And so it's definitely been a great experience. These changes have been hard, but they've been great. There's been some good things to come out of them.
In addition to this grace and finesse that you have, you're a hard ass too. And I love that about you, that we just went down a path recently, and you were strong. And I think oftentimes you've got this just effortless approach about you. And then I love to see it when I'm going to take this on and make it happen. And you're tough. You've got this amazing ability to be so graceful and strong and tough. And that's been fun to watch.
My husband may disagree with you on that one, but
on which piece?
No, on
grace or strength? The
strength. He may disagree with the toughness sometimes. I'm kidding, but it's all about fairness. I really think I generally come across very, laid back. I am, and easygoing demeanor. And I generally tend to avoid, tough assertions. I'm more of a, let me explain to you, bring you along on my journey kind of thinking kind of person. But when it comes to fairness, when it comes to, things like that, I definitely think that there has to be a line, and I hope that I don't ever compromise what's right. So that's usually when you'll see the toughness come out.
Well, and you're so metric driven. You're
Yeah.
so focused on walking into a meeting and saying this is the numbers on this. This was what happened, and it's all data,
Mhm.
and you're amazing at taking something that's quantifiable and saying this was why this worked or this is why it didn't, and that is also a unique skill, a superpower that you have. Over the last few years, as we've done these episodes, we've talked a lot about the LSI history, the industry, and the history of the industry. And what we do is so unique that the business development, the program execution, the economic development and social impact work that we do, those are unique skills. And you found, and you and your team have filled these really difficult positions. And what do you think about? What are you looking for as you talk with candidates, or even look at a LinkedIn profile? What is it that is there a pattern or a theme that you're looking at?
Sometimes it depends on, how specific of a skill set we're looking for. Generally, I've been able to kind of gather what needs we have from, the business, whether it comes from, the account executive or even from the client directly, right? The best way to find the right people is to know what the right people are. So I ask a lot of questions ad nauseum. Some people may say, why are you asking me about these things? It's because I'm not always in the room when the client is asking for someone. So if I ask a lot of questions, it's because I'm trying to understand exactly what they're looking for. So I think one of the critical things is to feel really confident in understanding what it is that the needs are. And then I, like a lot of the market, has changed. A lot of organizations are moving toward a more skills based or competency based sort of resume or background. Traditional diplomas and certain things like that are not as all encompassing anymore as we get to these more specific skill sets. So trying to figure out and research if someone's really good at X, would they know how to do Y? Or, a lot of that stuff is sort of the time that's spent figuring out what skills are transferable, what skills are really critical and specific, and asking a lot of questions to help find those. And then when it comes to the hunting part, I guess you could call it, or the fishing part. I'm more of a fisher, not a hunter. So casting the net really wide, ask anyone hey, who do you know? If you are not the person or you're not available, do you know someone who is? And I find the best results with just picking up the phone. I don't like to send an email. I want to pick up the phone and talk to someone so they know there's a personal connection. And some people would rather have an email, and that's fine. But just picking up the phone and again, building those relationships and finding out who's right for what. We first want to look internally if we have those resources and skills, and we've done a really good job of helping to identify those. We're continuing to refine that process, but when it comes to external, I think you get the best luck by a personal connection and discussion, then you can really understand.
Absolutely. One of the things that I thought was interesting, we were recently looking at an individual, and this individual had an amazing resume and a background, and you said he's not a good fit for the culture. What do you think if you're what advice or what guidance would you give individuals that want to join our team, and how can they position themselves and maybe self-select even on, are you a good fit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, good fit, and it's in some ways a relative term, but different roles demand different types of soft skills, I would say, and cultural experience that would lend itself to a more successful outcome. So if we're talking about, when we talk about there's really quantifiable skills required for almost any role, right? But being able to, and I won't, relatively speaking, if we're talking about leadership, maybe they need to be able to influence people. That's a critical soft skill in leadership. Maybe they need to be able to inspire people. They need to be able to show empathy. There's different areas that could potentially be, called into question, that you could put someone in who is quantitatively very competent, but they could fail, really, maybe at no fault of their own, just based on their own sort of soft skill competencies. So I would love to continue, and that's kind of part of the strategic vision for this year and next year, developing more of those, leadership competencies and soft skills, because we can all go, take courses and learn different things quantitatively, but when it comes to these soft skills, there's definitely a value in that. It's like you said before, this chemistry in the organization. There's a chemistry in that role that a person can actually really succeed with a fit perspective. And even coming into the organization, we know what I said culturally. We do demand, great work. That's an expectation, and we're not talking about people just, giving it half. We want people to give it their all. And if people aren't interested in that, then, this wouldn't be the right place for them. So culturally, we have to know who we are and what we need. And we don't want all the same people. That's another thing I've really appreciated about working here, and your perspective is that you've actually told me, I don't agree with that person. And I appreciate that, because I need their perspective to be well-rounded when we make decisions. So not calling anyone out specifically, but I definitely think that there's value in that. And I've appreciated that from you and from other members of the team, this idea to challenge, but culturally, how we engage and how we expect people to show up is pretty consistent.
You've been such an advocate for the team, and I love that. I love that you represent the organization to the senior leadership team often. And what advice do you have for an individual on the team that wants to progress in their career, or that maybe is in a entry level position looking to advance into an executive position? How do they do that?
Yeah. First and foremost, speak up, share that you're looking to grow. Not everybody, we don't expect everyone to walk in the door and want to be the next CEO. There are certainly people who don't, that say, I'm good where I'm at. I don't want to take on more responsibility, or I don't want to learn new things. I want to specialize. That's great. There's no harm in, there's no fault in not wanting to climb the ladder. But if you do and you want to progress and grow, then tell someone. If you look across to a different department and say, I want to learn how they do that, then go to someone and say, can you teach me, how you do this? Can you teach me how to be more strategic on this? Or I want to learn how to, write a grant. Go to someone that knows and say, can you help me? My guess is that they would be willing to bring you along, but share that with your manager, share that with anyone who will listen, to say, hey, I'm looking to grow. Ask what skills do you need to, improve on, both quantitatively and qualitatively. If you want to move into leadership, what are some things or what are some experiences that I need to gain to be a better leader? And maybe there aren't, opportunities at the ready in the workplace, but someone, can recommend things you can do in your community, or different things you can learn, or maybe even a book to read that can help grow that skill or that muscle. So I would say speak up, share your desire, and we'll work through a plan. I'd love to roll out a more formalized kind of mentorship program, but the reality is these things happen organically. And if you go and forge that path on your own, then, you're going to get better results because you're really looking for it. Inversely, if you see someone who maybe isn't prone to speaking up, maybe they are the type of person that wants that, but they maybe need a little nudge or maybe need some empowerment, be that person for them. If you see that, or say, I think you want to grow into that. How can I help you get there? It's all about collectively connecting and figuring out how we can create our own pathway or help others with theirs. Not everyone's the first to speak up or raise their hand. They might be intimidated. Ask someone to help you with that connection, or if you see it, take initiative and help them as well. There's so much satisfaction that comes from helping other people realize their individual goals that I think that in and of itself, even if it's not your own professional progress, is really just satisfactory.
Great advice. As we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you a couple of personal questions. We opened with talking about you being a mom and an incredible wife and daughter. And how is your life different than you'd envisioned as a kid?
Wow, that's a profound question. I would say I always envisioned myself, believe it or not, I always envisioned myself as, in business somehow. I always saw myself as a leader, wanting to help develop and support other people on their goals, their journey, if you will. I guess I never dreamed I would have accomplished so much in such a short period of time. Joining LSI, I felt so appreciative of the opportunities that have been provided, as well as to learn and grow, but also to take care of my family and to spend time with them. And that's, I guess I didn't picture myself having it all, although I may look like I'm calm, but inside I'm trying to figure things out. But I think, I don't know. I guess I envisioned myself doing just this, but having a harder time balancing with my family. And,
You are like one of those athletes that you watch some of these amazing athletes that are just so effortless in doing this amazing work. And that's you. You've got this, you're so good at what you do and it's so effortless. And I admire that so much.
thank you.
As you know, I've shared some of this with you that I've reflected a lot on my career and on the company's history, this milestone year, 50 years for the company and 30 years since I've had the company. What would you like to be remembered for when you retire?
I have thought about that. I would say what my legacy would be. I want to be thought of as someone who helped people, along their path. Maybe that I helped inspire them or help them find things inside themselves that they didn't know that they had. I want to be remembered as someone who really empowered others and helped them, really realize their potential and exceed their expectations. So I think with my own children and my own family and friends, but more so in the community, even, how I can make this, kind of impression and leave a mark. That's important to me.
That's great. What a great answer. Thank you for doing this episode with me. And I love working with you. And I love that you're a part of our senior leadership team and the impact that you've had on the organization already. And it's been incredible. It's just been a fun journey already with you. And you're such an asset to our company and to our industry. And you're really this amazing example of the potential that someone joining our company and in a short period of time really creating lasting impact in the organization. And it's been fun. I appreciate it. I love working with you every day.
Well, thank you, Sean. Likewise. Thank you.